we see that evolution very similar to computers. Did anyone do punch cards when they were? I didn't get a chance to do it. So did anyone drop their punch cards? Because I heard that was like the worst thing that you could do. So big mainframe computers filled up an entire room or two. And again, the evolution of computers that now put this in the palm of our hands, right? So we see that narrative in technology. There's a slide that I like to kind of also use to kind of let you know how technology has evolved quickly. Does anyone want to take a guess how many years it took for radio to hit 50 million users? Give me, how many years? Any guesses? 15. Another guess? 25. 25. It took 38 years for radio to reach 50 million users. What about TV? 26. Took 14 years, right? Less than half the time. What about the internet? 8, 10, 4 years. iPod, the original iPod with the little circle wheel, which was so innovative, it could hold 1,000 songs, and it was this thick. How many years?
2 weeks.
3 years. And Facebook, to reach 50 million users? 2 years. And the last stat there is iPhone apps. It hit 1 billion downloads in 9 months, right? So here you can see the adoption rate of technology is an incredible speed. A new piece of technology comes out, we adopt it. Anyone Pokemon Go players, right? You nerds, like myself, I'm Team Valor. What team are you guys? It came out one day and millions of people were on it, and about a month later people are off of it, but I'm level 20 on there. But this new technology, this new app, this new computer, this new something comes out, we go and try it out. We buy it. We now just know that we evolved with computers and technology, that it moves so fast. It's not going to take us 38 years to reach 50 million users on any piece of technology for the most part, if it's widely adopted, right? And the most widely adopted piece of technology is the mobile phone, right? Who woke up today with their cell phone as an alarm clock, right? It replaces the alarm clock. This is one of my favorite stats. It's actually pretty old now. 91% of Americans have their cell phone within arm's reach 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the first thing you look at when you wake up. It's the last thing you look at when you go to sleep. And if you're married, if you have a spouse, somehow you're still married because they're doing it too, right? There's a study that says there are more mobile phones than there are toothbrushes. The UN had a study not too long ago that said more people have access to a mobile device, a mobile phone, than they have access to a working toilet, right? Again, in the history of man, no piece of equipment, no tool has ever been widely adopted. TV, there's 1 or 2 or 3 in the household. The car, it's still 1 or 2. But this is one-to-one to everyone in the house, whether they're really young or really old. I'm not saying it's good or bad, it just is. Does anyone have more than one cell phone that is ruling their life? The reluctant hand being raised, there it is. Do you guys have 2 or 3? 2? Okay, you maxed out at 2. So it just is, right? This is essentially, if you think about it, if it's not in your hand, it's in your back pocket or in your purse. But when you engage with it, since it's around you all the time, this is essentially a wearable. But it's an inefficiently designed wearable that I have to use my hands to engage, and I have to look away and look at this screen to really interact with it. But it's widely adopted around the world. And it changes different aspects of our lives. I don't know if the audio is on, but this is, I'll play that again. Video from the Brussels terrorist attack, right? What a time. You're there, you experience a terrorist attack, you can take a photo and tweet it out, or as you're fleeing through the tunnels as an escape, you can record that video and tweet it out. It changes how we do journalism and news. This is in Dallas. The police shooting that was there, a woman was live streaming that footage and captured the gunshots, and it's just in real time you're capturing all these moments. This is from Diamond Reynolds, right? Moments after she got shot. Moments after she got shot, even though she went to Facebook Live, which we're using right now, and the officer still had his gun drawn, right? This is happening. Every one of us has, whether we want to call it a body cam or not, it's one of these devices that allows us to publish to the world. This is an older example, now 3-4 years ago, from the Boston bombing, the Boston Marathon bombing. This is the second bomb going off. Someone took a photo as the second bomb went off and tweeted it out. There's another one from David Green. I show this photo. I mean, think about it. The terrorist attack just happened, and this guy's fleeing. And then he stops and goes, I'm going to put that on Facebook, right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It just is, right? It's every aspect of our lives. We're documenting every moment. I did a lot of selfies today as I went back to Pike's Place and had the mini donuts and watched Amaya and Dick's last night, because In-N-Out's great, but Dick's is very special. So the authorities knew that. Authorities know that, so they told everyone, if you were at the Boston bombing and took photos, please review your images. We're looking for these suspects. And lo and behold, David Green found the younger brother who's been sentenced to death, right? I showed this is chilling. He captured that guy as he was fleeing the scene of the crime. Also showed this because, what is she holding? Is it a computer? Is it a newspaper? Is it a radio? Is it it's all of those. None of those and all of those. This is her lifeline to the rest of the world, right? For better, for worse. This is what it is. This is the world that we live in, right? If we agree on a mobile-first world, we can understand that a mobile phone is the most essential device for a media consumer, but it's also the most important piece of equipment for a modern journalist. At Annenberg, we teach you how to do broadcast video, audio, coding as well, but we're also focusing a lot on mobile because, again, that everyone's on there. Everyone's creating content, everyone's consuming content in real time, all the time, for better, for worse, right? Now, if we go back to the evolution of it, well, we've reached the mobile phone. What is next? So Mark Billinghurst predicted it was Google Glass. This was Sarah, was in my class. We did a Google Glass class. We hacked on it. We created something very humbly called Glass Genius that would listen to your conversation and in real time give you contextual information based on what you were talking about Ebola. We picked Ebola a little bit reluctantly because it was kind of gross if you think about it. But it was a story that was moving fast and had a lot of misinformation. So with Google Glass, we created content when people were asking, like, can I get Ebola? What are the symptoms of Ebola? What happened to that doctor in New York that went bowling? It would hear those keywords and then it would give you contextual information, the latest news, things like that. But as you know, Google Glass didn't work out. But it's not dead. The concept is coming, so get ready for that. But then the question is, what is next, right? I've done a class on augmented reality. I'll talk a little bit more about that if we have time. But right now, my current jam is virtual reality. Now, virtual reality, this is an academic definition from the publication known as Wikipedia. But basically, virtual reality is you're leaving this reality and going to another reality. And you do so currently with a head-mounted display or something to that effect, right? But this is the nerd dream of the holodeck from Star Trek. This is what a lot of us have been chasing, right? To be able to step into a room and to have that experience. VR has been promised for decades, and it's been hype and broken promises since I was a kid and even before that. It's been adopted in Hollywood. It's been, talked about. This is one of my favorite references that my students never get, which is, anyone know this reference? What show is this? Murder, She Wrote. If you guys didn't get that reference, geez. So this is Angela Lansbury virtually experiencing a certain reality. This meme has come out. Angela Lansbury is using virtual reality. Your argument is invalid. So for any VR haters, I just point them to that. So it's been around for such a long time, but it's never been mainstream. It never really worked. Books have been written about it that are really fantastic. Snow Crash from Neil Stephenson is a really great book. One of my favorite books about it, which is derivative work essentially, is Ready Player One. They're making a movie they're making this into a movie, and I think Steven Spielberg is signed up to direct it. It's going to be it's a really great book. I highly recommend it. At VR conferences, they often give away this book because this is becoming like the nerd Bible for VR. And again, it's been around for a long time. And it's been studied for a while. This is some images from Mel Slater. He's based out of Barcelona, where he put a headset on people and they were standing in front of a virtual mirror. And they would see themselves, an avatar of themselves, but he would change their skin color and change their gender. And the user would start feeling empathy and understanding what it must be like to be in other person's shoes, right? We said, how do you put yourself in other people's shoes? Here you can put yourself in other people's bodies. And one test he did was he shrank the user. He lowered the user and put adults around them, but they didn't feel like kids. They just felt like they were shrunk. So he added the CG of the chubby baby arms, and immediately their brain believed, like, I'm a little kid again, right? Now, it's not that I'm small, I'm a little kid again. Lots of studies that look at how our brain works with virtual reality. My favorite is the rubber arm test. That's this one here, where they put a piece of cardboard between your real arm and a rubber arm. And it's not a very compelling rubber arm. It looks pretty bad, but they synchronize touching the rubber arm and your real arm, and your brain immediately attaches the rubber arm to its body, right? Your brain just goes like, I know this is a fake rubber arm. It's a horrible looking rubber arm, but it's now my limb. And so when they try to like hit it with a hammer or with a fork, you immediately flinch, like someone flinched when they met a dinosaur, right? So it's not the graphics, it's just the sensor. Your brain makes that switch. Anyone seen this meme? I promise I won't do that to you. It goes on for a long time. He freaks out for a long time. There have been folks showing up. Actually, I got interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about folks are doing a story about, is this our future? I hope not. But people are putting on these immersive headsets out in public places. This gentleman who was having a milkshake, what became a meme, and they photoshopped him into WALL-E, which I thought was funny. But this is legitimate technology. The president has used it. In fact, the White House released an experience about national parks. You should look up the memes that came out of this photo. It was really cool. They made him an X-Men who was shooting out lasers. Really cool. But this is becoming mainstream. VR is becoming more and more common as a concept because of this device. This is the Oculus Rift. I have it set up in the back there, and each one of you can try it out, try out different experiences. This device it legitimized an industry that had been promised and overhyped and not delivered for decades. And it was made possible by a USC student. Actually, it's a former journalism student from Long Beach who dropped out of the journalism program to come to work at USC. I'll tell the story about how he created that headset, because virtual reality is happening on a national global scale. The epicenter of VR creation, from hardware and software and such, is in Los Angeles, and the epicenter of the epicenter is USC, to be quite honest. We'll talk more about that, but the Oculus Rift is on sale. You can buy it now off the shelf. They finally are putting to market these what are called touch controllers, which you guys, like, it's amazing. I may cuss because I'm from the newsroom, but also, holy shit. I tried it a year ago, and they've improved it since. You put on these hands, these controllers, and when I did it was at the Oculus conference. I put it on, the woman came out and said, okay, your instructor's going to come in and he's going to walk you through it. I'm like, my instructor? What is this? And I'm looking at my hands and I'm trying to control the buttons, and I'm seeing my CG hands look all spastic. I'm like, ooh, this is bad design. This is not going to go well. Then a kind of a ghost robotic cyber head and hands appear in front of me, and the way they're hanging, I can tell it's a real person. And my colorful language comes out, and I'm like, holy beep, beep, beep. are you a real person? And the guy laughs and says, yeah, I'm Michael, I'm your instructor. And I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Where are you? I'm 3 doors down. Let's begin. What that moment was is called presence, right? I shared a space with a person, and it wasn't someone who looked like a human being. It was this ghostly kind of figure. It wasn't a full body. It was the head and hands. And we teleported into a room that had a table with all these polygon shapes. And he was like, okay, here's what you do. You put your hand over one of those items. It's going to vibrate, and you pick it up. And I was like, oh, man, the controller did not work well. Let's see how that goes. Put my hand over a polygon shape. It vibrated. I clenched my hand to pick it up like I would pick up anything else. And I had it in my hand. Threw it up in the air, and I caught it with my other hand. Then I threw it, and it had the right physics. It was amazing. We teleported to another room that had a bunch of toys, a puppet, a ray gun. We shot fireworks. I shot slingshots with paintballs, and it had all the physics you would expect. No lag, completely believable, fantastic. He shot me with a shrink ray. I shrank down to size, and my voice sounded like a chipmunk, and he sounded like a giant. I got a sphere of this blue liquid, and I put it over my head, and the room filled up with water. And now it sounded like we were talking to each other underwater. I grabbed an item, I threw it, and it had the physics of throwing something underwater. It was amazing. Then we went to space. That's zero gravity. I threw something, and it kept on going. What a time. We live in the future. And these devices are available. It's not something in a book. It's not something that we saw in Murder, She Wrote. This is something that is real and available now. And so it has spatial audio, comes with a Xbox controller, but this is the key device that is now on sale for about $150, $175, done by this young man, right? When I did Google Glass, it was only one device, which was the Google Glass headset. But in this particular case, HMDs, head-mounted displays, are coming from all over the place. This one here is the Samsung Gear VR. They partnered up with Oculus, and you basically have to get a Samsung phone, the Edge, don't get the Note or it'll explode on you. But you pop your phone in there, and now you have a head-mounted display, wireless. When I saw this, I thought, okay, I see it. I want to do this stuff now. There is also, you see in the corner there, is Google Cardboard. That, fun fact, also created at USC, but it was picked up by Google and given out during Google I/O. It's also given out to New York Times subscribers. Is anyone a New York Times subscriber? So if you were one, they mailed it to you. It's basically a piece of cardboard with two plastic glasses there that converts any phone into a head-mounted display. And you each have one in front of you. It's that red cardboard. We'll put it together in a little bit. But my favorite one that you can get for about $20, $30 is based on the ViewMaster. You guys remember the ViewMaster, right? That little disc, you popped it in there, you clicked, and you got to see different photos. Well, Mattel reached out to Google, and they created this head-mounted display. You pop in your phone there, and you're now transported to another world. So another ones on there are the HTC Vive, which is what's called room scale. It's got sensors across the room, so you can walk around in this virtual space. Sony PlayStation VR is out now, and the other is Microsoft HoloLens, which does mixed reality. Actually, a couple weeks ago, Microsoft announced they're also releasing another headset for really cheap, for $200, that plugs into pretty much any Windows machine, if I remember correctly. So that is a fantastic way to do high-end experiences affordably. But the HoloLens is pretty fantastic. JPL was an early partner with Microsoft, and I got to go to Mars with my friends at JPL. It was amazing, you guys. And today, one of my field trips was, thanks to Sarah and Eileen there, I got to go to the production studios where they capture 3D models of folks. This is a 3D model of New Zealand indigenous. What is the hookah? What is it? Maori. No, the Maori. But what is the chant called? The haka. The haka. I said hookah, but that's so LA. That's not that. The haka, the war chant there. They have cameras I forgot, like hundreds of cameras around the room, even lighting, and they record and use video of the subject in the center. And at the end, they reproduce it. They've scanned the room. This is 1% of all the scan points. That was like blew me away when he said that today. And it outputs this model that you can see from any angle. You control it. You can look around it. You can rotate it. That's neat if it were stable, just standing there. But this is real video, essentially, that you can see from all angles. So you can Google to see more video clips of that, but I thought that was pretty amazing. There's a colleague, another alumni student who's working with Noni de la Peña, who I'll talk about in a little bit, and they're using this technology with another company called 8i to tell nonfiction stories. They're working on one about solitary confinement. And I hope he doesn't mind me sharing his Instagram, but they got a prisoner from solitary confinement to sit in the center of one of these setups and be scanned as he was teaching you how he was fishing to send messages to people. He's tying it on a string and sending it down to the other cells to kind of talk to people. Really cool. That's the setup. Screened and then put into a virtual reality experience. This one again about solitary confinement. What they use basically, once they scan, they create a computer graphic object and you plug it in a gaming engine. So when a lot of people think of virtual reality, I put it in two buckets. The most common bucket that a lot of people think about are video games, right? So you got to make a model. If we're going to recreate this room, we'd have to hand by hand, pixel by pixel, recreate the beams, the tables, these crazy chairs. And once we have these 3D assets, we bring them into a gaming platform like or Unreal. You create the 3D models in Cinema 4D or Maya, then you bring it into a gaming platform to create that world. But with the technology that Microsoft and 8i have been developing, you can scan items, and that automatically makes an accurate, 100% accurate representation of the item, which is essential for us for nonfiction storytelling, right? If I want to do a journalistic story about this room, I can't just have any tabletop. There were square edges. Well, no, they're rounded edges. So journalistically, we need to be accurate in this technology that is coming out that allows us to scan items, photogrammetry and such, allows us to create 3D models and bring them into storytelling. And we're learning to develop these skills more at Annenberg, as well as partnering up with the Viterbi and the folks at the Game Pipe Lab and Cinema and all these folks, and they come together in a class, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So video games is one common bucket. The other bucket that people think about is cinematic movies. And these are the cameras you use to produce video in VR. The bottom two are the ones for cinematic. This is the Nokia Ozo that you can buy for $45,000. Yay, no. This is the Jaunt that is backed by Disney and so many others. No one knows what that price is. You have to kind of like be friends with them to get it on loan. We do have a Jaunt lab at USC. John said, you kids, you cinema kids are really smart. Here's a dozen of these cameras, figure it out, make some good stuff. And that's great. They're not giving that to me. Newsrooms can't afford that. So I'm always interested in affordable technology to produce this stuff. And one of the first cameras that came out is the Ricoh Theta. This little camera here, it's got two fisheye lenses. I point it in the air, I press a button, and I'll go back on stage, don't worry. Press a button and it captures a photo, a 360 photo. There are others out there. I don't have it on the screen there. Oops, wrong phone. But there is, this is the Insta Nano, Insta 360 Nano. It clips into your iPhone. This is $200. 4K 360 video and photos, right? So what a time. You put this in there, you can capture in an immersive environment. The one that my students and I are using now, thanks to Samsung and some support from them, is the Samsung Gear 360. This camera is $350, 2 fisheye lenses, and again, with one button, I can capture video or my surrounding areas in 360 photo and video. It is 4K, so let's pass this around. Here you go. Here's the camera, and it's streaming to the phone, and you can preview in real time what the shot is. So you go, pass it around there. This device is what enables us to do really quick 360 footage, documentary style. The most common camera, the camera that I started using with my students, is the 6-camera GoPro with a mount there. That allows us to point 6 GoPros minimum in every direction and capture the footage there. Then we stitch it together and produce video. And all this stuff does immersive video. It's really amazing, a lot easier than we thought, and this is something that journalists can do. We work with video cameras all the time. To take this step to do immersive video storytelling, it was doable, and so we jumped in that. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. So you can consume stuff with the head-mounted display. You can create stuff with Unity and these cameras. How do you distribute this stuff? Well, you stitch the videos together with a program called Color with a K. You work it in Premiere and After Effects, but there also is software called Skybox that allows you to use the graphics in 360 even better. They've been fantastic in giving my students free licenses every semester. And then you publish it. The video, and there's 2 startups. There's about 2 or 3. One of them is in Santa Monica called Viridio. They've been great. Some of my students have interned for them. And Viridio is trying to be the YouTube of 360 video. But guess who's going to be the YouTube of 360 video? YouTube. They've been really fantastic. They featured our students' work, and we've generated over 160,000 views of our work. But yeah, this is the ecosystem for creating virtual reality, consuming virtual reality, and distributing virtual reality. It is not just one device, it's not just one camera, one headset. It's everything, and it's not just one price point where it's extremely expensive. It's high-end to extremely low-end, right? And if you want to learn this stuff more specifically, I have a URL that I can share with everyone. And VR comes in many forms. We're seeing it in marketing. You'll see over here Coca-Cola did a World Cup thing. Happy Meals are now being converted into headsets. In the upper corner is South by Southwest. About 2 years ago, they did this experience about Game of Thrones. That's Hodor there, and they put him inside the elevator that went up the Great Wall, that big wall. And again, they know they just stepped into a box. They know that they're in a box and they're not moving. When they put that headset, she is freaking out. Is that Arya? I always forget her name. The youngest Stark daughter is holding on for dear life as they go up the wall to defend, right? You can step into a Van Gogh painting, which is really beautiful, and experience that. Oculus has created stories to kind of show how again you can create presence and have experiences. This is called Henry, about this hedgehog who wants a friend to hug, but he's a prickly hedgehog, so it's a challenge. There are video games. That's Adrift, which is, think of the movie Gravity, but in a video game form. I will tell you guys, one of the times I was traveling with the Oculus, I decided in my hotel room, all right, let me go play this video game. Let me try it out. 2 hours later, I took it off, and I was amazed. It was a compelling story. Time went by. I was in space, and in part of that game, you're trying to find oxygen canisters so you don't die, and when you don't find it, your breathing starts to change. And I noticed that my breathing was changing, and I was like, oh my God, this is intense. Zero gravity, floating around, again, sitting in my chair. In 2 hours, I felt nauseous for a split second twice because I was spinning around. I was like, whoa, geez, lost control. But it's effective and it works. Magic Mountain in SoCal has a VR ride called The New Revolution. And there's a lot of people doing movies and trying to experiment in this medium. This piece is called Birdland. So what you do is you lay down on this thing, you flap your wings, and you're a bird. A POV of a bird, there's a fan blowing on you as you move up and down, and you fly around as a bird, right? I haven't done it. The line to try it was way too long, so I skipped it. But what a time. You can now be a bird. When I was coming out to this event, I got contacted by a Seattle startup called Axon VR. The sister of the head of marketing is a USC alum. Our mafia, our family is very big. And I actually had heard about this company a few months ago, and what they do, or what they're planning to do, is an exoskeleton haptic feedback suit. So you feel virtual reality, and they have this whole robotic arm, and you step inside it, and you walk on steps, and you can feel things. When I saw that video sent to me, it was like, that's not happening. That is no way real life. Well, I got to go to their lab today, their offices, and I did a demo where they're developing a glove. And what I was able to do is place CG objects onto my hand and feel them in real time. So there was an apple and I felt the shape of an apple. I put a ketchup bottle. You know how the ketchup bottle, the Heinz bottle, is kind of flat on different sides? I rolled it and it felt flat in real time. I did this as well. Put a spider on my hand.
Don't move out.
The spider started to move. And I felt the little legs move. I was like, Jesus.
I've had tarantulas, but don't animate them jump to my face, because that would be mean. I'm going to remove it before that happens.
There is a biting animation, believe it.
So I felt it. I felt the little feet. It moved. It looked at me. Now in CG, it's like, wow, it's looking at me. That's what you experience with the Oculus and the other devices. But to feel it, that's another level. And it's happening. They're creating gloves. It's using air to do that. It's really fascinating, the stuff. That's just downtown Seattle. Lots of stuff. And so I'm looking at this from the journalistic lens. I'm trying to figure out, what is storytelling? What will this be? What will a text piece be? What will a video piece be? What will radio be? Or what will VR journalism be? I don't know, but this is I'm not the first person asking those questions. There's a professor who is retiring named Larry Pryor, who his wife told him, you gotta clean out your garage. There's all this old digital stuff. And he looked at me and he said, Robert, do you want my stuff? I'm like, sure, Larry, put it in my office. It's a mess already. And for about a month, I've been walking by his boxes, and then I looked at this big poster. And this is a poster of a research presentation, a poster presentation he did at an academic conference about user-directed news. And it's 360 immersive news. This is from 2002, and it talks about surround video, and it's the stuff that my students and I are working on. The examples that they even list are the examples that we're working on. So it's been around for a while. And I've been at USC for 7.5 years, and when I got hired, Noni de la Peña got hired. Noni de la Peña was hired as an innovation fellow. She is a documentary filmmaker who used Second Life to recreate Guantanamo Bay in an experience called Gone Gitmo. No one really knew what it was like inside, so she created it in Second Life. And we together were, I don't know if it went over there, I think they want to see it over there. We together were advising a magazine class on how they could be more digital. They were talking about hunger in the Golden State, which was food deserts in South LA. There are more fast food places and liquor stores than there are grocery stores for healthy vegetables. And the economy was tanking as well, so there was more people at the food bank, in line for the food bank. I was advising them in terms of how to use audio slideshows, video, WordPress, how to become more digital in creating content and distributing it. And I remember Noni looking at me and saying, what if you can experience what it's like to be in line at a food bank? And I looked at her going like, dude, we only have 15 weeks. What are you talking about? It took her longer than 15 weeks, but she created this experience. She went across campus to the MXR lab, pitched them the idea, and she recorded people at a food bank line, and something happened when it was there. So, can we lower that? Here you go. I lowered it on mine. So this is an immersive experience where there are sensors around the room with a headset. And so you can physically walk around, walk up to these people and see them, right? And when they were recording audio, a gentleman went into diabetic shock and collapsed. So they recreated that in CG. Those are not great graphics. They're not the best graphics if you play video games. But being there and seeing it, people rush over and check on the person to see if they're okay, right? Again, they knew beforehand, they put on this headset, this was CG. So this was really effective. I tried it and was like, wow, this is amazing. No one's ever going to do this in their house. Who's going to do it? How will this scale? There's sensors all over the place. Not going to work. Man, I've been proven wrong so many times, and I'm an early adopter. But Sundance went to the lab and tried it out. And Sundance was like, my gosh, this is amazing. We need to bring this to the festival. Noni was like, hell yes. The lab was like, hell no. There's no way you're leaving this lab with a custom handmade $50,000 headset. And a young man raises his hand and says, I have an idea. That young man was Palmer Luckey. His idea was the prototype that started off a Kickstarter for the Oculus Rift, right? Journalism, USC, it was all there. That's what kickstarted this industry. That company, Oculus Rift, was bought by Facebook for $2 billion, right? It's happening, right? And my thought of like, who's gonna do this in their house? The HTC Vive with 2 sensors, that's how you do that. You can now walk around physical spaces. It's amazing. We'll live in the future. Newspapers have done experimentation. This is from Gannett's, the Des Moines Register. You can do anything in virtual reality. They decided to make a farm. I'm not sure that was the best choice, but you can explore this farm and learn the story of this family. But every time I give this talk, I can add more and more and more examples of VR pieces that are around. The Wall Street Journal did a story about the NASDAQ in 2004, and they were like, the NASDAQ was a crazy ride. And they're like, what if we make it a crazy ride? So you can ride the NASDAQ numbers as a roller coaster. Noni is now known as the godmother of VR because of what she did and inspired Palmer and the work that she's done and continues to do. She's done stuff for the UN, for refugee camps and domestic abuse stuff, really powerful pieces. One of the popular ones that came out that made a lot of traction is called Clouds Over Sidra from Chris Milk. He's got a company called Within. They partnered up with the UN to create this stuff. It's been distributed by the New York Times. It's about a refugee camp. Noni did a piece called Project Syria, where they found cell phone footage of a rocket bomb, a rocket attack going off, exploding a building, and they recreated that in CG. So you're in that space, they found footage of this little girl singing, rocket blast happens, you feel it, you jump, you get scared, you see the disorder, the chaos, and then you're teleported into a refugee camp, right? In journalism, we're trying to, show, don't tell. Our words try to paint a picture tries to capture a moment, but this is on another level. This is really powerful stuff. And more and more and more people are getting into this game. Riot is a startup in Santa Monica that was bought by the Huffington Post. They're doing advocacy journalism. The AP, the LA Times, ABC News went to North Korea with the John camera. Everyone is producing stuff. BuzzFeed. But let's have you guys experience it, not on the Oculus Rift, but with your cell phones. So what I want you to do is take out your smartphone. Everyone, who doesn't have a smartphone? Right. And who doesn't have the YouTube app on the smartphone? You really? Oh, okay, Microsoft employee does not have a YouTube app. You need the YouTube app, but in fact what I want you to do is on your browser, type in this URL. What's going to happen, it's going to take you to, it's going to launch the YouTube app if it works. Let me know if it doesn't work. Should launch the YouTube app and launch an interview that the Verge did with Michelle Obama. And so I'm going to type it in here as well, gr.im/VR Verge Obama. If you want to jump on the Wi-Fi, password is community, capital C, and instead of an I, it's an exclamation point. for the Impact Hub there. So I'm going to jump on the Wi-Fi.
One more time on the password.
Community with a capital C and an exclamation point instead of the I. And so I type in the URL, it launches YouTube, and it plays the video of Michelle Obama. This is called the magic window.
This is one of the things that I worry about.
So
because, we were talking about.
you can look around, go ahead and launch it. Make sure you, a lot of people, one of the interesting side effects, people are going like, wow, man, cool video, you just recorded the ground. No, you have to hold it up and look around. Right, so experience Michelle Obama in your magic window. I have this one right here. Raise your hand if you need help to find it. Sarah, can I have you help me? Rome. Yes, and then hit go. Ah, okay. So do you have YouTube? You don't have YouTube. Okay. Let's download YouTube for you. Is that okay with you? Please. Okay, so just get the app and install, and we'll come back. How about, anyone else need help?
Yeah, I'm having trouble.
Okay. So you got to download the app. So it's downloading. It's going to ask you for your password, perhaps. Let's see.
No, it's gone.
Okay, good. So you do need to have YouTube to experience this stuff. So you can look around, right? So watch that video, pause it, put your phone down. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through how to put this together. This is a virtual reality head-mounted display made out of cardboard and 2 plastic lenses. If you think about it, a virtual reality is telling us to do something that our moms told us not to do, which is sit close to the television. What we're going to do essentially is put our phone to our faces. So go ahead and open this thing. Rip that open there. And it should, you tear it off there, there's a little line there, tear that piece off. Right? So then what you're going to do is you just open this up as a rectangle right there. See that? Everybody here? So you tear off that, tear it off from the wrapper, right? Tear that off and set this aside. There you go, everyone. Now you have 2 pieces. This one you set aside, right? You fold this into the rectangle, right? This black part, you push that in, and it clicks into the little grooves there. Right? So now we've got the headset there, and this white part right here, that's kind of like a nose guard. Fold that like a taco. And you pop that in here. Let me know if you need help. Sarah will go around as long as she figured out how to do it. So this is from a company called Dodo, based on Google's first version of Google Cardboard. They've got better versions now. When I started to do this, I told the school, you need to do me a favor, make these with Annenberg logos. You'll be the hottest school. I made with my students a tour of the new building. We'll do that in a little bit. But basically what this does is you wrap it around, and this is now a head-mounted display, right? So go back to your YouTube, your phone, YouTube. Go back to Michelle Obama. And what I want you to do is this time, click on this lower icon. See this icon right here?
It's just
You have to have the latest version of YouTube,
Not only do you
but in the corner there's this little cardboard icon. Click on that and it splits your screen. Then what you do is you put this
first connection
in your viewer
happen without
and you now should experience
they can get
an
their
immersive version of that video.
before you even know. When you're talking about really young kids,
Ooh, slash through.
Yes,
Ooh, I've never But that is virtual reality right off the bat. You can do this, right? With the head-mounted displays that cost hundreds of dollars, that's really difficult to make it mainstream. But with this device that everyone has, everyone can now experience virtual reality. So, like I said, you can experience it through YouTube. You click on that icon. This is the video of Michelle Obama. I'm going to skip it because we all have seen it. But one thing that's kind of neat is that there's this whole new vocabulary, whole new best practices that are being developed. How do you edit in an immersive world where you can see everything? And so here's an example of how The Verge created a really great solution of editing.
Parent. You know, my
Look at her hands. Keep an eye on her hands, even though they're out of focus.
Without me involved, because they can get their phones and they can tap into this stuff and they're using it before you even know. When you're talking about,
Did you see how it jumped?
kids, you know,
That's basically how they did, kind of like a magician, sleight of hand. They made it blurry, they put graphics so you're not looking at the action, and then they made that cut. These are all new things that we're trying to figure out. How do you make a jump cut? How do you cut? Then it's also talking about ethics, right? What do we do? What do we exclude? How do we film it? All these things are new questions for us specifically as journalists. How do we tell those stories, right? There's, if you launch the YouTube app, if the link didn't work for you, you can look up the word journalism. That is something we're trademarking. It's journalism instead of the U, it's a V, it's a cute typo, and now we produce a lot of stuff under there. There's a playlist there with a bunch of different experiences for you to try out. One of them is The Displaced from the New York Times. This was the piece that was released when they gave out the Google Cardboard, which is about refugee kids around the world. I'm going to skip that for time. Kia is another one. This is one from Noni de la Peña about domestic abuse. You experience it. It's a 911 call. Two sisters are trying to save their sister from an abusive relationship. The male from that relationship pulls a gun and kills her. And I experienced it through the Samsung, right? And the opening scene, the car comes up, opens the door, I see it, then I get teleported inside. I see the circle, the gentleman pulls out a gun, and I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. Then I tried it with the HTC Vive. Again, I knew exactly what was going to happen, but this was room scale. So I'm walking around, opening scene, car pulls up, she opens the door, and I'm like, oh, geez, I'm in your way. Right? I reacted to her opening the car door. Then we teleport inside, and I noticed that we're in the middle of the circle, and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be in the middle of the circle. You guys need privacy. And then he pulls out the gun. Again, I knew exactly what was going to happen. He pulls out the gun, and I jump. My God, he's got a gun, right? Very different because it's another level of immersion. I'm now sharing presence with them. This is a new type of storytelling that is happening. The experience, you can get a clip of it. This is one from BBC. I'll play this one because I kind of like this one a lot. This is walking with the largest dinosaur ever.
This is a titanosaur. If I was on an ordinary television program, I'd say that it was about 40 meters long.
This is the spherical video made flat. It's called ectorectangular. So it's not really impressive. But when you put it on there, you can see it. You can actually do a search for BBC One largest dinosaur on YouTube, and you can see the experience and walk with this dinosaur. It's pretty impressive, and that's on YouTube, right? This is from a colleague of mine, Ben Kramer, formerly of BuzzFeed. He flew a drone and put a 360 camera on there to capture this apartment. This apartment that is crumbling into the sea. It's pretty amazing. Someone asked, can I fly? Yes, you can, depending on the experience, right? So really neat. And my students are among these pioneers creating VR content. These are two of my students. Ben Dunn has returned to my class again. I put googly eyes before the president did on my stuff. You can see some of the stuff there. That's director of the school, Willow Bay. She was a good sport, tried out some VR stuff. And we've produced a bunch of experiences. My class from a year ago, this is how we would end our pieces, a closing credit in 360 with Tommy Trojan in the back over there, who's now covered in duct tape in fear of Bruins. Not in fear, but in protection of Bruins. And so we did that in 360. And then earlier this year in the spring semester, my students and I worked with ProPublica and the Texas Tribune to do a piece on the Houston Ship Channel. ProPublica, I think I cut out the video. ProPublica did an investigation about how Houston, it's known locally, that Houston is basically screwed when a hurricane hits it at a certain angle. No one's debating it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so ProPublica had heard about the work that my students and I were doing, and they said, hey, do you think this is a VR story? Do you think we can use VR to get people to care about a disaster before it strikes? And so that's what we're trying to do. If all goes well, we're publishing our experience next week. Part of that experience, scientists are projecting a model called Mighty Ike. Hurricane Ike created a 10-foot wall of water, a 10-foot storm surge. Mighty Ike is projected to create a 30-foot storm surge. Now your brain is like, wow, 30 feet, that must be tall. Well, in VR, I can put you next to an actual house, a CG model house that we created based on an actual house along the water, and have a 10-foot wall of water come to give you perspective, and then the 30-foot wall of water come to give you perspective, right? These are things that we're doing in VR. We're going to people's homes. We went to the former mayor's house and his living room and talked about where the water level was when Hurricane Ike flooded his house, which he is elevating, he's raising up. So we went there, and it's a really great collection of pieces. We have an app. Right now it's iOS, and in a few months we'll have an Android version. But if you want to download and see some of the, in fact, if you download Journalism, it's called Journalism, again, cute little typo. In that app, you can experience the new Annenberg building. Has anyone been to the new Annenberg building? It is freaking amazing. Let me tell you guys, like, professional journalists come in and they're like, can I stay here forever? I'm like, no, get out. The future, we're training the future to replace you. It's pretty amazing. That's the first experience that we did. You can see the dean and try some stuff out. You can do that by downloading the app. Next semester I have a class about the Salton Sea, the desert sun. The paper in Palm Springs reached out to me and said, hey, we know what you're working. Can you collaborate with us? And they're like, I was like, well, what do you got? And they're like, the Salton Sea. Anyone ever been to the Salton Sea? It is so surreal, and dead fish, and it's crazy history. It's the largest lake in California. It was made by accident in the early 1900s. Fascinating story. We're working on that. So we're trying to figure out what the next piece of journalism is. I have 5 minutes to tell you what the long game is that we're working on, which is augmented reality. We talked about virtual reality is you're in this world, this reality, and you leave it to immerse yourself in another reality. Augmented reality is real life enhanced by digital. 3-4 years ago, I did a class on that. We augmented the downtown LA library, Google Glass, all these things. There's a company I want you to keep an eye out of Florida called Magic Leap. They have these cryptic videos that came out where it had this ability to hold a little elephant in your hand. And then they released this video here. They reached out to me and we sat down to talk about their technology. One of the things that they're not telling you there is in order for those kids to have that experience, they all have to be wearing a headset, aka Google Glass, right? Mobile, if we remember the beginning of the talk, a mobile first world. This is the next design, right? This was leaked out as they were going for a patent. They swear to me it's not going to look like that because that looks too dorky. Fun fact, who knows about spectacles, right? Only a handful. This is from the makers of Snapchat. They bought this startup company where they now are selling sunglasses with cameras in them, right? And what you're doing with the cameras, you're recording snaps. In fact, Snapchat is now Snap Inc. And if you go to their About page, it says Snap Inc. is a camera company. These folks are innovative in terms of augmented reality for those who convert their faces into a little bee or a Dalmatian dog using the Snapchat filters. That's augmented reality, and they're moving this mainstream and forward and making it adopted without people thinking what that technology is. I'm going to skip some stuff, trying to think about what is the future of journalism, right? And the thing to always think about is that saying, content is king, right? So it's a reminder to folks, it's not about the device, it's not about the technology, it's about the story for us, right? Technology is just technology, but if I can't tell you a compelling story, what's the point? So we're talking about content, but optimizing it for the users. A good story is a good story, regardless of the media format or the technology. And we're being the R&D for the industry by trying to experiment and figure out what makes a good story. Can you move a camera? Can you not move a camera? Can you tilt a camera? Can you put a camera on a drone? You have to experiment in order to practice and also to fail in order to hunt and find a good story. So that opening title, that question that I get from folks, how are you preparing students for all this stuff for the next disruption? I'm not preparing them for that. I'm preparing them to lead the next disruption. I didn't put the slide in. There's a quote from Brian Solis that I'm trying to put in all my slides now and end with him, which says, you're either leading the disruption or you're going to be disrupted. Which one are you going to choose, right? So for us at Annenberg, at USC, we're disrupting. So thank you guys for coming out. We'll nerd out more with VR stuff, and I can talk about the cameras if you guys have questions. But thank you guys. Questions? Yeah.
So the story, you're sort of, you talked about the physicality of it and the visceral reaction you were having with the gun when you used HTC.
Yep.
Did you get a sense that it increased your empathy? I'm thinking from a storytelling.
So VR is known as an empathy machine. There have been arguments in terms of like, oh, but you're isolating yourself from the world, but what you're doing is you're teleporting yourself to worlds that you don't engage with, right? So going to a refugee camp and seeing these kids, how they live. So yes, it's empathy. You feel that. You understand that story that you didn't pay attention to, another bomb, another drone attack, another earthquake in Nepal. Then you see it and like you're there, you feel it. So yes, very much so, and there's studies on that. Question in the back there.
Do journalists tell these stories from first person or third person?
So this is exactly a bunch of things that we're trying to figure out. So that camera stand-up feels weird, but it's still effective. So this semester, my class is working with the Center of Investigative Reporting, also known as Reveal News, doing stories about drought and water in California. There's something called subsidence. There's this famous photo from Dr. Polin in the 70s where he's in in El Nido in California, standing next to a telephone pole, and he's put signs 30 feet up, 1923, halfway down, 1955, and at the ground, 1977. And he's saying, this is how fast California has been sinking. Since 1923, we've gone down 30 feet. So we went out there with a drone to the same spot, to a pole that was there, and we flew a drone to illustrate those points. And we have a reporter talk to the drone, which is talking to you essentially, before you go flying up. So we're experimenting with that, but the more common thing is the person, the subject is talking to you, and the reporter is outside the room. We're trying a variety of different techniques. I saw another hand earlier. Yeah.
For AR, so VR, it's very clear, it's clear in journalism. With AR, it seems more like whimsical right now, with like little filters.
There's a lot of gimmicky stuff.
What?
There's a lot of gimmicky stuff. I mean, it's neat, it's whimsical.
Do you see a role of AR in journalism?
Yes. Yes. Now, what that is exactly, I don't know. That's what we have to explain. I teach core classes, but this elective class, almost like I've given talks about it, which is, I don't know. And that is a very different framework for a college class. Your professor doesn't know the answer. I like that framework where I don't know, but let's find out. And so we had an AR class where we augmented the downtown LA library It was, the LA library was burnt down, half of it in the 80s by an arson fire. I didn't know that. So what we did, I can show you some footage. We interviewed the librarians that were there. We found some footage from KTLA. We made a photo gallery. And on top of the library is a hand holding a torch. It's a replica now that's up on the outside. They have the real one down in a hallway. And we use that physical object to be, when you point your device at the torch, hotspot buttons come out, and you can click on it to watch our documentary about the arson fire or flip through the photos. We also had access to their private special collections. Really amazing stuff, hundreds of year-old books. They're centuries old. And one of them was Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven illustrated. We made a 3D model of that and put it out. So you point your phone at this marker, the model appears. You can look behind the book, you can open it, flip through the pages, through a photo gallery. Those weren't capital J journalism pieces, but you start to see we can put contextual information all around you. Now with Magic Leap and talking with them, you could potentially use that wall that is blank and hang breaking news on there or tweets or what have you. So it's early days for that, but yeah, that's what we're working on to try to explore.
Did they say a release date?
For them, they keep pushing, like every technology company, they keep pushing it back, but they're doing something. That's pretty amazing. I became aware of that company when Google gave them $500 million. They've hired everybody, including Neil Stephenson, who wrote the book Snow Crash. They've got Qualcomm. They've got a lot of people working on that stuff. I've met people who've done the demos. I didn't get to do a demo. I learned about the technology but didn't demo it. They all swear by it. But they're really smart because they know Google Glass kind of messed things up. So you can't just have a design where you look like a cyber dork, right? Because Google Glass became a symbol, especially in the Bay Area, became a symbol of gentrification and the city, being sold off to .com. Like the Google buses became a symbol in the Bay Area. So they know that is something that they have to figure out. They also know they have to mass produce it and make it cheap. They're going from soup to nuts, from hardware to content to distribution. It's all in there. So they released their SDK, so folks can start developing with that stuff, if I remember correctly. But they haven't given out a date on the hardware.
Do you know anyone who's tried both the Hololens and the Magic Leap?
I don't recall. Because there's another one which is a smaller startup called Meta Glasses. They've been around for a bit. I've tried them out. Epson has one called the Movarios. Those are not good. But hey, they were there. Glasses and AR glasses have been around for a long time. I've been going to AR conferences way before Google Glass came out, and there's stuff there. But Meta Glasses have been coming out. I did the demo. It was all right. That is a larger field of vision than the HoloLens, but you don't interact with it like you do with the HoloLens. Someone wrote up a piece, though. I feel like someone wrote a piece about HoloLens and Magic Leap. I just don't remember the outcome of what it is. Other questions? Cool. Who wants to meet a dinosaur? Let's go over there. Thank you, guys.